Hello, 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 everyone. I am your brother man, Joshua Mohari, and I'm back again with my 30 seconds. Yeah, where can I start, man? It's been a few weeks. It's been 2 weeks. We just took them off to rest, just to pause, reflect, and to actually rewind and just to look at what we've done thus far. Um, it's half months down the year, and then we're looking forward to a very, 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 very productive second half of the year. And I'm not alone, as you know, we're with our finance minister, Mr. Cliffy Matiki from Wealth Associates. Cliffy, how are you, man?
Hey MJ, man, I'm all good. How are you?
I'm great, fantastic. How have you been?
Man, I've been good. It's been such a long 2 weeks. So much has happened. In all across the country, and went to Joburg. There was the snow as well. It's been such a really really busy 2 weeks. And to be honest, I'm very cold. It is getting very very cold this side. But all in all, we're all good. We're still pushing on, man.
But I mean, you should be used to it because you're in Bloemfontein, man. I mean, Joburg weather shouldn't, shouldn't do anything to you.
No, man, it's just that the day I landed there in Joburg, bro, it was the day, I think, riding up to the cold front. There was that super cold front, the one that brought the snow.
Yes,
I came
yes.
around that time, and that was too much, man. I don't lie. Bloemfontein is cold. It's cold right now, bro. But that little 2 days that I had there, yeah, man, it was something else.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful, though. It was beautiful to watch with the snow and everything.
I love it so much. I've been so excited. I've been telling people about today's episode, more especially because of the Reserve Bank's decision that they made yesterday not to increase any basis points whatsoever. What do you think of
Oh,
that?
yes. I mean, it's good news, it's good news to everybody because right now everybody was expecting that they're going to have that 0.25 basis point change.
Yeah.
But they actually decided to keep it the same, and it's good news. And just after they decided to do that, they gave us the inflation news as well to find that now we are below that 6% threshold. That's that government, the Reserve Bank, usually tries to keep in that bound. So
Yes.
it's good news for all the consumers right now in the country.
Yeah. I was actually just about to get into that to say, I actually think that after all, the Reserve Bank's increase in the basis points along the way during the course of the year was a result of the stability in terms of the inflation rate, and I think that's a good indication for investors out there. That's a good starting point to pinpoint if we're going to market for investors out there to come invest in the country.
No, 100%, and I'll just refer to an article that I saw earlier on the internet. They were talking about us working towards getting off the gray listing, that we have. One of these tools we have to use is like fighting the inflation now, which we can see it's coming in pounds. So as that gray listing goes, if outside investors, foreign investors, they then see us on a better position, and at least that puts us in a better position as a country as well.
That is so beautiful. But then perhaps for those that don't know what grey listing is, can you just give them some bit of some knowledge on what it actually means if a country is grey listed?
So countries are rated. There's a body that rates them, and it rates their ability to be investable. If I could say that, how good are they in terms of their politics? How good are they in terms of balancing their fiscal spending? That's government spending. How good are they at managing monetary spending as well, which we see with the Reserve Bank? And on that basis and that criteria on how you can operate as an economy, they then have a listing, a scaling that they have. And of course, when you're in the gray, you are at the bottom, and obviously you want to be at the top, where now you are on the triple A. Usually they used to use triple A's, double A's, and then if you go further down, you get minus triple C's and junk bonds before. Now they just calling it grey listing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I get that. And when you mentioned that, it reminds me of something that I just bumped into just the other week, and In England, where they were playing the tennis Grand Slam. I think that's Wimbledon, if I'm not mistaken. That stadium. I'll just double check that. So they have like they had a
Yes.
they had a they had a pigeon problem. So they had a lot of pigeons around. So then the pigeons always make a mess. So about 20 years ago, they decided to get a little hawk, or what we can call an eagle, beside a hawk, and they named
Yes.
him Rufus. So Rufus' job is to fly around the stadium, to scare off any pigeons around there, because and he looks at all the pigeons or anything happening from above, and that said so
Yes.
much to me that sometimes we have other we have higher powers, or we have higher institutions that are looking from above to look at regulations and regulate what the country is doing. And I just don't know
Yes.
if it sometimes I just don't know if it's quite fair how a country like South Africa has been treated recently, more especially with the feud between Russia and Ukraine, and our strong ties with Russia. I think they've succumbed us to some extreme scrutiny with the Western countries. And do you see that having a bit of an issue with the investments, foreign direct investments into South Africa?
Yeah, like, so as a republic, immediately when we entered the stage of globalization, we were bound to be under almost wouldn't want to say rule, but under the guidance of these bigger economies. And we realized that now, as you mentioned, that we are caught between two, because the West is asking us to do this, and then again on the East we have with BRICS as well. They want us to do that. So as a country, South Africa, we almost feel like everything that is done in the country is dictated. And I mean, if I'm bringing it to context quickly with the Reserve Bank, what they did as well, I mean, many people now start to see a trend where usually when the Fed does something in the US, immediately we almost do a mirror of that as well. And then they almost try to predict our changes based on that. And then goes back to the point you're making about a hawk watching down the pigeons to make sure that everything is in line. And right now with the situation, I think politically it was handled superbly, because I mean, if you look at the trends that happened, what happened was Mr. Ramaphosa, our president, he went to Russia, he went to the East, and discussed peace offerings, discussed that matter that we spoke about the other day on the podcast about Africa and how it's treated, and he discussed these things, and then being able to come back, and then now we realize that Putin has actually decided he will not come to the country, because him coming here was going to cause chaos, based on the fact that, like I said, we are playing on I think, as I would see it, on the west and the east. So he now is not coming, and as a country we see that as a success. We have dodged a bullet in which we were supposed to act, and us acting was not just going to be a small act. Him coming here, President Putin, and us having to act on that was going to be a global sort of position.
Yeah.
And that was going to
we were going to experience
give us enough prepared position.
a global catastrophe had that happened. And speaking of BRICS, just this week the BRICS Youth Summit was hosted in Durban. And I was quite excited to see some of my friends there. Some of my friends flew down there. Some of the people that I know as well flew down there. And it was quite interesting. And what really sparked me the most was the Honorable Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. She said something remarkable. She said that we expect young people to accelerate the building of a new global system that is more just and inclusive. Is that BRICS is a breakaway from the past. Now, with that being said, do you think that such initiatives can can bear successful fruits in the global economy? I mean, one of the few things that we discussed here, besides inclusion, was education. Globalized education and so on. So do you think such initiatives can assist us compete in the global market as countries within the BRICS and so on, and most particularly as young people of South Africa that have the ability to work and have the ability to offer resources when needed?
The way the BRICS framework is created, I would say that it is designed, yes, to get us to a position where in the world also will be in a position where we can now have our ground and also compete at a certain level, which is why now we are seen as an emerging market. But that has slowed down recently because of literally like now we are seeing that there is a global, push and pull, trying, like I said, BRICS is an Eastern movement where the parts of the West don't want that to come up. These guys came up with things like the Development Bank, that BRICS Development Bank, one that was supposed to fund activities that are happening in these emerging markets. But of course, with Western interest in these emerging markets, it's something that obviously they can't have, because what it creates is now independent countries such as South Africa being able to be a big actor in the international stage. And I think the way it is designed to put us in a better position. But if it can be followed like that, I'm not sure if that is practically possible, because as you can see now, there are so many tensions amongst the global leaders and the leaders that are leading the BRICS. As we see, Russia and China are actively engaged, in activities that are against the Western powers.
Yeah.
Even in currency in itself, the currency now is also something that has been brought up, something that has not been brought up in a long time. So really, if those kind of things can then be solved, and that framework that BRICS has put up for us as emerging markets to use, if that can happen, yes, it can work for us. But right now, like we say, it's push and pull, and quite frankly, as South Africa, we're almost in the middle.
Yeah. As we always have the segment of the show where we talk about innovation of the week. I was quite fascinated. I saw a couple of things, but then I saw something quite interesting, and I thought this would be very interesting for young people. And I've come to this realization based on how young people competing in the market don't like debit orders, and they don't like constant things, or signing contracts that can't be easily changed. And then bumped into a mobile networking company called Melon Mobile, and they say they aim to disrupt South Africa's mobile industry by offering a fully customizable data subscription service. So that is so cool. What do you think of that, man?
Man, that is fantastic. It's that whole offering right now of being able to personalize products. That is the future, because like you said, you said something so important. It struck me too. Even in the industry that I'm in, where in terms of insurance and having to sell insurance to younger generations, life covers and all of that. Younger generations just are not comfortable with constant contracts. They want something that is, I can change it now and make it into something else. If I don't want to go on with it, I can use this much and tweak it in such a way that it suits me. And that is what technology has brought us to a stage where each and every individual wants something that is tailor-made for them. And I think that is groundbreaking, and I think that is the future of products in itself. If you're not able to directly speak to the individual, because before, product was sold to us wholesale. You could, all of us get it, and we have to use it like that. But nowadays we see that because more and more things are incorporated, AI, for instance, now we're able to do what? To target the individual. And if they're able to use that, like that will be powerful, man. It will be powerful, but it will be also a very good job in terms of the science behind it, because if each and every individual can get the amount of data they want to use, that is a lot of background.
I went through their website, and what it showed there was you could decide the amount of data you want, the amount of airtime you want, and the amount of SMSs you want. So if you're like a call person, then you would definitely pick more calls than more data and more SMSs, and as compared to our traditional ways when they just award us based on, I don't know, whatever system they use. But I think that's quite transformative. But then with that being said, I wanted us to look at the financial gatekeepers in such industries. In the mobile networking industry, you have some big giants like MTN, Telkom, Vodacom, or Vodafone, as many may know it. We've seen some mobile networks come and go. I don't know if you remember around 2010s, ATA. Do you remember ATA?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
ATA
yes.
came and went. Rain is in, and they're just trying to do this and that. Virgin Mobile was there at some point, But then, what do you really think is the biggest problem, more especially for this tech and communication businesses to enter into such competitive markets in South Africa?
Now, it's because, when we look at the country, and there are many kind of these sort of industries that have these, what you call them, you said gatekeepers.
Yeah.
We have a lot of oligopolies, which make it hard for smaller business to come and compete. And oligopolies are just, a number of a small number of businesses that have come together and regulated that industry in which it works for themselves. And then competition is quickly eliminated, because immediately when you try to get into the industry, they have set regulations in such a way that obviously they're already known in the industry, they have already established themselves, and there's sort of many things that they can protect risk management, on a risk management perspective, that they can protect themselves from. So they create regulations in such a way that small businesses find it hard to just compete, because the same customers that you want are the same ones that the oligopoly has in itself. So it becomes challenging. And I just thought about it now. If we look at bread as well, companies like Albani, Sasco, these are the gatekeepers. Nobody else can enter that market. And we can go on and go on as well. There's so many kinds of these sort of situations. And for competition is not good, because if you control it like that, then that means you guys control the show. You guys decide what happens.
But I want us to look at it. I want us to look at it in this way. I want us to think, and for perhaps to give to give something to our listeners to think about. What is it that perhaps the state can help us do in terms of regulating such competition to allow a lot of SMMEs in our country? Because it's tried that SMMEs are the backbone of the South African economy, but because of the red tapes and these financial gatekeepers and so on, we see some of these SMMEs, especially tech SMMEs, unable to compete in the market at large because of all this. So what exactly can be done? What exactly do you think should be done? And what exactly may we do to ensure that these SMMEs are also assisted in terms of competing in a larger scale?
In terms of the government, and I think we always say this every time, reinvesting in the economy. That is the one thing that they should and will do. And we go back to the most simplest thing that we talk about day to day that affect small business. Because for small business, the main thing is having to survive. In South Africa, they say that first 5 years. And things like we mentioned, the road being good to drive on, electricity being on, infrastructure to be there, transportation, Transnet, like can we get a way in which goods can get to fro without risks of trucks burning, risks of trucks having accident, things, just simple things like that, which obviously to us may seem simple because it's just a discussion, but in terms of implementation, it seems like it's a hard thing. But if they can just reinvest in the economy in itself, in the people, that I swear that I think that would be good for small business to then also stand up and be able to be in a position to, because the market will be there. If the government reinvests in its people, there will be a market, and where there's a market, there are entrepreneurs. Where there's entrepreneurs, there's an economy, you see.
Absolutely.
But now the market is not there because the government is not reinvesting in its people.
Yeah. Speaking of infrastructure, man, it's such a pity. I just saw a video, I think yesterday, day before yesterday, there was an explosion in Johannesburg CBD, and I just can't seem to pinpoint what the issue is. A lot of people are saying a lot of things. I don't really know. I just know it's an explosion. But we have a lot of old infrastructure in South Africa. Be it that some of these things, some of these infrastructures that have been put in place are not necessarily saving us the way. Some of the catastrophic things that we are coming across is a result of the poor infrastructure, and the one biggest one being the electricity generating infrastructure. The minister of electricity came out a number of times saying, the infrastructure was old, and some of the people that were in the ESCOM board were saying indeed that the infrastructure was old, therefore it was not able to generate enough anyway. So what actually can be invested in, because we can't fully say that infrastructure what stance do you think the country should take at best to focus on in terms of infrastructure? Because I'll give you an example. China has positioned itself to be a a tech world, or a tech world, what's this? Yeah, a tech world point where they know that they specialize in tech. And now, as we can see, India is going that way as well. They've positioned themselves that way because they want to be known for tech. And as compared to most African countries, South Africa is still in agriculture and so on. But then we're seeing a number of changes in terms of the response of the economy, where we see that the economy in South Africa and the JSE and so on, some of the top performing companies are companies that focus on service and tech services and so on. Do you think that the government should really reconsider investing in enablers, or enabling resources, or enabling infrastructure to permit better access to global markets in terms of tech enabling infrastructure, for example, fiber, 4G, 5G, whatever it is, better access to financial instruments like your pocket pos, POS, and so on, crypto, and all that. Do you think it's necessary right now, or it's not the time?
I'm just gonna make an example now with what you said. That accident we saw in Johannesburg. Imagine that is happening, and you have now just put on the latest fiber networks. Fiber has to go on underground and all of that. Imagine now you've put the best fiber networks, and something like that happens. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think for now, even though we don't want to lose track with the world, and we shouldn't. That's why institutions of learning should always be funded, so that we keep up with the world in terms of what's happening. But I think now is the time where we should go back to basics. We're talking about infrastructure is not working. These are things that involve plumbing, engineering, you know what I mean? Things that involve the fixing of infrastructure involves actual physical work that has to be done. These things should be the things that are invested in right now. Because if we say we're going to technology software, it's something that is you need a working infrastructure for you to be able to enable technology to work at its best. But if the structure in itself is not there, then the point of bringing in this new technology, it's unnecessary, because at any time you might find a road will blow up because a gas tank is leaking. First, let's invest. This is my opinion. Invest in those things that will first bring up the structure. And like I said, this is technical sort of work. This is technical sort of learning and engineering sort of learning. That, if it's promoted, I think then we have something going. Because we can't promote 4IR before we don't have buildings. Where is this 4IR going to be? And we need to first track back and focus on that. Then we can meet the world in a point where we have a structure. Now we also have scientists who know which sort of technologies we can put on these structures for them to work.
Well, Cliffy, I think there's still a lot to unpack. I mean, we still have next week. I see the time is running out. Just before you leave, tell me about it. You're going to watch Oppenheimer today.
Yes, 100%.
I heard they invested about $100 million there. How much do you think they should expect an opening week?
Now, opening weekend is just alone. I was reading here earlier on. They're expecting 50 to 100 million in terms of returns dollars, and that's just on the opening week, But quite frankly, it's an awesome movie, and the studio in itself trusted the director. I always keep telling people this, like, the director who's giving us that movie is one of the best. The same guy directed movies like Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk. So now he's giving us another one from World War II, which is Oppenheimer, and it's a very, very wonderful story, an interesting story based on the context of what it is. So it's worth it. I'm gonna go watch it, and it's gonna be 3 hours. So it's the type of movie where you need all your focus. It's not action blazing like that until So, but awesome movie. I think I'm definitely going for it.
I'm going to watch Barbie.
Yes. So if you want to watch Barbie as well, that's a lighter movie. And Barbie's actually expected to make more.
Yeah, definitely. They were making campaigns like crazy, man. I just saw my my nearest shopping complex here, they had all the pop-ups for Barbie. People were taking pictures there and kids and so on, and that was so interesting, man. But you know what? I don't want to take your time. I think you're watching your movie at 6, aren't you?
No, 7 actually.
Oh,
We got the
alright,
ticket
cool.
for 7 o'clock.
Alright.
So now we're just gonna get ourselves ready and eat before we watch. Like I
Yeah.
said, you need all the focus, man.
Oh, take a pack of extra peanuts. Put them in your pocket. You know they're very expensive there. The economy is rough, eh?
No,
You know what, Cliffy?
no. We have to support our economy.
I mean, you bought it somewhere, didn't you? You know, yeah, like I always say, and I always end the show, like sands through the hourglass. So it's the time that we have to spend together. And ladies and gentlemen, that was Cliffy Matiki from Wealth Associates. Until next week, Cliffy, see you soon, man.
Thanks, MJ. Have a good one.
Cheers.